Indian just revealed a brand new vintage motorcycle, and before anyone gets lost in the styling photos, the real question is why they brought this bike back now. A full classic cruiser in today's market is a statement, not a safe move. It says something about demand, about long-distance riders, and about what manufacturers think still sells in the real world. If you ride a touring bike, a trike, or any heavyweight cruiser, this announcement affects your choices more than you might think. Stick with me till the end, because by then you'll see why this reveal is a lot more than a simple return of an old name. The name they chose to bring back. When Indian Motorcycle announced the return of the Chief Vintage for 2026, the reaction was not loud hype, it was pause. Dealers across the Midwest and Southeast had expected incremental updates, maybe new paint, maybe a trim shuffle. Instead, the company reached back into one of its most recognizable badges and brought it forward again. That decision carries weight in a cruiser segment that has seen cautious refreshes rather than bold name revivals over the past several years. The timing is not random. The heavyweight cruiser market has been steady but selective. Touring machines remain strong. Stripped cruisers hold their lane, yet full classic silhouettes have narrowed into a smaller but loyal slice. Bringing back the Chief Vintage signals that Indian believes that slice is stable enough to justify investment. Dealer chatter over the last 12 months suggested cautious optimism, not runaway demand. Inventory has moved, but not at panic pace. Against that backdrop, reviving a heritage name looks less like nostalgia and more like strategic positioning. A name carries expectation. Chief Vintage is not a new experiment. It comes with a built-in image and a certain standard. Indian could have launched a fresh submodel and avoided that pressure. Instead, it chose a badge that already sits in riders, memories and dealership histories. That choice answers the real question before any chrome is examined. They resurrected this specific badge because it already means something in the cruiser world, and meaning shortens the distance between announcement and trust. From strategy to substance, attention shifts toward what was actually rolled onto the stage. First, look without the marketing spin. Set aside the press copy and look at the motorcycle itself. The most immediate feature is the return of full valenced fenders, sweeping low over the wheels. They are not abbreviated or stylized. They are deep, extended, and unmistakably traditional in proportion. Wrapped around those wheels are wide, white wall tires, not thin accent lines, but full bands that visually anchor the bike to an earlier design language. These are deliberate visual commitments, not casual styling cues. The front end carries a substantial nacelle housing the headlamp, crowned by the Indian script. It is not minimal, it is not stripped. The nacelle creates a strong frontal presence that separates this machine from lighter, pared-down cruisers. Behind it sit leather saddlebags with visible stitching and defined structure. They are shaped to hold their form rather than collapse into soft pouches. The tank follows classic contours, broad and sculpted, leading into paint and trim combinations that lean toward deep, heritage-leaning tones rather than experimental palettes. Chrome is used with restraint but purpose. Engine covers, exhaust, and select trim pieces carry shine without overwhelming the silhouette. Nothing about the layout suggests a radical departure from what the Chief Vintage name historically represented. At the same time, panel fit and finish appear tightened, with cleaner transitions between metal and leather. Strip away the adjectives, and the answer becomes clear. They built a full-dress classic cruiser with modern assembly precision, not a retro-inspired hybrid. Visual clarity leads naturally into the mechanical story beneath those panels. If you appreciate straight breakdowns without the marketing spin, take a second to like this video and subscribe for more deep dives like this. What's carried over? What's updated? Under the tank remains the Thunderstroke architecture, first introduced in the modern Chief line in 2014. That engine family established Indian's air-cooled, pushrod-driven identity for heavyweight cruisers. Its defining traits have always been strong, low-end torque, broad cylinders, and a look that fills the frame with presence. The decision to retain that platform confirms continuity rather than reinvention. Mechanically, much appears familiar at first glance. Finning, cylinder angles, and overall layout remain consistent with previous Thunderstroke generations. That familiarity matters, because it suggests parts commonality and a known service rhythm. However, refinement is evident in subtle areas. Throttle calibration is reported to be smoother off idle, and internal balancing updates aim to reduce excess vibration without erasing character. These are evolutions rather than redesigns. Cooling strategy, exhaust routing, and intake flow appear optimized within the existing architecture rather than replaced. There is no ground-up engine revolution here. Instead, the approach resembles careful iteration. For riders who track model years and long-term durability, that distinction is important. This reads as refinement of a proven platform, not a leap into untested territory. The platform continuity answers the lineage question directly. This is an updated chapter in an existing mechanical story, not a brand new volume. Specifications tell part of the truth. The road ultimately decides the rest. If you're considering a cruiser in this class, open the description for the gear and accessories that improve comfort and everyday usability. The first real test. Does it still feel like a cruiser? Character begins at idle. The Thunderstroke settles into a deliberate cadence, not frantic, not subdued. There is a measured pulse through the bars and floorboards, enough to remind you of displacement without turning the mirrors into a blur. Crack the throttle gently, and the response is immediate but not abrupt. The torque builds early in the rev range, delivering forward motion with minimal drama. It does not chase high numbers, it leans into steady, usable thrust. Roll-on behavior in third and fourth gears reveals the engine's intent. Instead of demanding downshifts for everyday passing, it pulls from mid-range with confidence. The power band feels wide rather than peaky. That trait defines cruiser identity more than any badge. At highway pace, the bike settles into a composed rhythm. Wind management from the large front profile helps reduce fatigue, and the chassis holds a straight line without constant correction. There is weight here, but it feels planted rather than cumbersome. Taken. Together, the riding impression answers the final question of this return. It rides with the weight and authority expected from a traditional cruiser. It does not pretend to be lighter than it is. It does not chase sport numbers. It delivers presence, stability, and torque in a way that aligns with the Chief Vintage name. The unexpected return, at least in its first test, feels grounded in substance rather than ceremony. Ergonomics without the showroom illusion. Comfort begins where spec sheets stop. The seat on the 2026 Chief Vintage is shaped with depth rather than flat padding. It cups the rider instead of perching him on top, and the foam density feels tuned for support over distance rather than soft display appeal. There is noticeable contour in the lower back area, encouraging a natural spine position instead of a forced upright stance. The width distributes weight evenly, reducing pressure points that tend to surface after several hours in the saddle. Handlebar sweep plays a quiet but critical role. The bars arc back toward the rider in a measured curve, neither aggressive nor overly relaxed. That geometry keeps wrists neutral and shoulders settled, limiting fatigue in slower traffic and at steady highway pace. Floorboards are broad and placed slightly forward, offering room to shift foot position during longer stretches. They are not cramped, and they do not force knees into a sharp angle. Wind protection from the windshield directs airflow over the chest rather than straight into it, cutting sustained pressure without creating turbulence around the helmet. Taken together, the seating triangle forms a balanced long-distance setup. Nothing feels theatrical, nothing feels cramped. The arrangement answers the practical question directly. This machine could cover real miles without turning comfort into a secondary concern. Once the rider is positioned properly, attention naturally moves to how the weight behaves at low speeds. Balance becomes the next measure of usability. Low speed control and balance. A full classic cruiser carries visible mass, and how that mass is managed determines daily practicality. The Chief Vintage distributes weight low in the frame, with the engine sitting deep and centered. At walking pace, that low center of gravity reduces the top-heavy sensation that can plague taller machines. Steering input at parking lot speed requires deliberate effort, yet it remains predictable rather than sudden. The front end tracks steadily through tight turns without flopping inward. Clutch engagement is progressive, allowing controlled launches without abrupt lurching. That matters when maneuvering in confined spaces or easing through stop-and-go traffic. With luggage installed and a passenger aboard, the added weight shifts the balance point slightly rearward. Even so, the chassis remains composed under gentle throttle and light braking. The rear suspension absorbs small bumps without rebounding, harshly maintaining stability at low speeds. These traits define everyday manageability. There is heft, but it is organized heft. Steering remains steady, throttle transitions are smooth, and loaded behavior does not introduce instability. The result is a cruiser that feels substantial without becoming unwieldy in routine situations. Once physical control is understood, the conversation turns toward the electronic systems layered on top. Mechanical presence meets digital assistance at this stage. Modern systems, necessary or decorative. Ride modes on the 𝒕𝒉𝒆 subtly adjust throttle response, rather than transforming the motorcycle's character. The differences are noticeable, but not dramatic, altering how quickly power arrives without rewriting the engine's torque profile. Traction control operates quietly in the background, designed to intervene only when rear wheel slip exceeds a set threshold. In normal dry conditions, it remains invisible, allowing the rider to forget it is there. The display is integrated into the tank console in a way that does not dominate the cockpit. Information is presented clearly, with high contrast fonts and straightforward menus. Screen brightness adjusts to ambient light, helping maintain readability under direct sun and in evening conditions. Controls for navigation through settings are located within easy reach, minimizing distraction during operation. There are no intrusive animations or unnecessary layers of graphics. Importantly, these systems do not override the mechanical feel. Throttle input still produces a direct response, and braking behavior remains governed by hydraulic feel rather than artificial filtering. The electronic additions support stability and clarity without imposing themselves on the ride. That distinction answers the central concern: the technology contributes function where needed, instead of existing merely to inflate a feature list. With usability assessed, durability and long-term support come into focus. Long-term ownership defines the real test. Build quality and service reality. Leather saddlebags exhibit consistent stitching and firm structure, indicating attention to material selection rather than cosmetic covering. The texture feels durable rather than delicate, suggesting resistance to sagging over time. Chrome, finishing on engine covers and exhaust components, appears evenly applied, with smooth transitions at seams and mounting points. There are no visible rough edges or mismatched plating in close inspection, reinforcing an impression of controlled assembly standards. The Thunderstroke engine platform carries a record spanning more than a decade in modern Indian production. Over that period, it has developed a reputation for strong low-end durability when maintained according to factory intervals. Routine service includes oil changes, valve train inspection, and belt or chain checks, depending on configuration. Access to key maintenance points remains straightforward, reducing labor complexity for common procedures. That continuity with previous models simplifies parts sourcing and technician familiarity. Dealer network footprint also shapes ownership confidence. Indian maintains a nationwide presence with established service centers in major regions, reducing the risk of extended downtime for parts or specialized repairs. When leather, chrome, engine architecture, and service access are evaluated together, the conclusion is measured rather than exaggerated. The 𝒕𝒉𝒆 presents itself as a machine built to hold up under consistent use, provided regular maintenance is respected. Function, not romance, defines its credibility over time. Who this bike is really for. The 2026 𝒕𝒉𝒆 does not aim at every rider walking into a dealership. Its size, visual commitment, and torque-focused character narrow the field naturally. Traditional cruiser loyalists are the most obvious audience. These are riders who value full fenders, visible metal, and a machine that looks complete without needing aftermarket correction. They are not searching for stripped minimalism. They want substance, and they want it visible. Another group likely to consider this model includes riders stepping away from large, fully dressed touring machines. After years on wide fairings and integrated trunks, some look for something slightly less bulky without abandoning long-distance comfort. The 𝐕𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒓 occupies that middle ground. It retains presence and weather protection while shedding the integrated touring shell. That shift appeals to riders who still plan real mileage, but prefer a simpler silhouette. Cross-brand consideration also enters the picture. Buyers who have spent time on heavyweight cruisers from other manufacturers often weigh loyalty against practical fit. When a machine offers comparable torque, similar ergonomics, and a distinct aesthetic identity, it earns a place on the comparison list. There is no need for brand confrontation to understand the dynamic. The 𝐕𝒐𝒉𝒆𝒓 draws attention from those who prioritize classic form with modern assembly standards. That profile answers the central question clearly. It appeals to established cruiser riders evaluating their next long-term machine. From buyer identity, the lens widens toward industry reaction. A broader ripple forms once a targeted release gains traction. The competitive pressure it creates. Within the heritage cruiser space, product updates tend to move cautiously. Manufacturers refresh paint, adjust trim, and refine engines incrementally. Introducing a fully committed classic model with renewed focus sends a signal that the segment remains worth defending. Even if sales volumes are not explosive, maintaining relevance in this lane influences showroom balance. A strong entry here forces competitors to evaluate their own classic offerings. Adjustments may not appear immediately, yet product planners track moves carefully. If the 𝐕𝒑𝒉𝒆𝒓 secures steady demand, rival brands must consider whether their heritage models feel current or dated. That could lead to refinements in trim quality, updates to engine calibration, or rethinking of ergonomic setups. The pressure is subtle rather than dramatic. It is measured in brochure revisions and option packages rather than public confrontations. Positioning shifts can also emerge at the dealership level. Sales staff respond to customer questions, and repeated inquiries about a rival's classic cruiser prompt internal review. Even without open rivalry language, a renewed focus on traditional styling alters conversation in the showroom. The 𝐕𝒑𝒉𝒆𝒓 does not need to dominate headlines to create tension. Its presence alone nudges the segment forward. From competitive dynamics, the discussion inevitably moves to cost and value. Financial clarity often defines long-term success more than styling. If this kind of no-nonsense cruiser analysis matters to you, make sure you're subscribed. We'll keep tracking where this segment is heading, what it means for real-world buyers, and which moves actually deserve your attention next. The pricing conversation. The expected pricing tier for the 𝐕𝒑𝒉𝒆𝒓 places it firmly in premium cruiser territory. That position reflects not only engine displacement, but also material selection and finishing detail. Buyers are not paying for raw performance numbers alone. They are paying for leather quality, chrome depth, paint complexity, and assembly precision. Each of those elements carries production cost that filters directly into the final sticker. Value assessment becomes less about comparison to entry-level cruisers and more about evaluating craftsmanship against alternatives in the same class. A rider considering this model is weighing long-term ownership satisfaction against initial outlay. Past 𝐕𝒑𝒉𝒆𝒓 variants have shown relatively stable resale performance, particularly when maintained properly and kept within reasonable mileage ranges. That track record influences purchase decisions more than short-term discounts. Cost defensibility depends on whether perceived quality aligns with real durability. If leather holds its structure, chrome resists corrosion, and the Thunderstroke platform continues its established reliability, the price stands on solid ground. There is no emotional justification required, only tangible evaluation. The question resolves into practicality. Does the construction and reputation support the financial commitment? With pricing addressed, the final lens shifts to the broader state of cruiser demand. Segment health determines whether such investments continue. What it signals about cruiser demand. The decision to revive and refine a full classic cruiser indicates sustained confidence in demand for traditional silhouettes. While some segments chase aggressive styling or minimalist forms, there remains a consistent audience for substantial fenders, visible engines, and upright ergonomics. Sales data across heavyweight cruisers over the past several years suggest steadiness rather than collapse. That stability supports continued development. Touring interest also influences cruiser viability. Many riders prefer long-distance capability without stepping into full touring bodywork. A model like the 𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓 bridges that gap, capturing those who value comfort and range without the added complexity of larger integrated fairings. As long as cross-state travel remains common among cruiser owners, there is space for machines that blend comfort with visual continuity. Brands invest in heritage platforms when they believe the audience will persist. Tooling changes, material sourcing, and marketing campaigns require planning measured in years, not months. The existence of a renewed 𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓 therefore reflects a calculated assessment of segment durability. The cruiser category appears neither shrinking into obscurity nor expanding uncontrollably. Instead, it shows signs of consolidation around clear identities and proven formulas. That balance suggests continued presence rather than retreat, anchoring the 𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓 within a stable, defined market lane. Manufacturing commitment. Reviving a heritage model requires more than a marketing campaign. It demands tooling allocation, supplier agreements, and assembly line scheduling that extend well beyond a single model year. When a manufacturer commits to a name with established expectations, it signals belief in sustained demand. That belief shapes investment decisions, from sourcing leather and chrome components to forecasting engine production volumes. These are not short-term expenses. They are structured plans that unfold across multiple production cycles. Supplier chain confidence plays a central role. Leather providers, casting facilities, and finishing plants must align output with projected volumes. Contracts reflect anticipated stability rather than experimental bursts. If the 𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓 were merely a limited splash, supplier engagement would be minimal and cautious. Instead, the structured return suggests coordinated planning among parts manufacturers who expect consistent orders. Such alignment points toward continuity rather than temporary attention. Production signaling also extends to dealership allocation. When a model is positioned for ongoing presence, distribution strategies balance initial excitement with sustainable inventory flow. That approach protects both brand and retailer from sharp spikes, followed by steep drop-offs. Viewed from an industrial perspective, the return of the 𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓 reads as a calculated commitment. It does not resemble a fleeting revival. It appears designed to anchor a defined position in the lineup for the foreseeable future. From factory floors to cultural currents, the lens shifts outward. A machine's identity often outlives its production run. Cultural weight. Without mythology, classic styling continues to resonate because it offers visual stability in a landscape of rapid change. Full fenders, visible engines, and broad tanks communicate purpose without explanation. Riders who prefer this approach often value clarity over experimentation. They see familiarity not as stagnation, but as consistency. The 𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓 leverages that consistency without exaggerating it into legend. Visual continuity matters to riders who have watched design cycles rise and fade over decades. When aesthetics shift too aggressively, motorcycles risk alienating longtime enthusiasts who value proportion and familiarity. By retaining recognizable lines and traditional silhouette, the 𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓 places itself within an unbroken visual thread that stretches across generations. That continuity does not dismiss modern refinement or precision assembly. It simply contains those updates within established boundaries. For many riders, that balance lowers uncertainty, reinforces identity, and preserves a clear sense of coherence in a marketplace that often chases abrupt visual change. Modern aesthetics, by contrast, sometimes divide buyers. Sharp angles, minimalist tails, and reduced chrome appeal to one group while distancing another. The 𝒕𝒉𝒆𝒓 chooses not to chase that divide. Its design language works because it aligns with a segment that values visible substance and proportional symmetry. The appeal lies in clarity rather than myth. Understanding that cultural footing clarifies where the model stands in a shifting marketplace. From symbolism to practical assessment, attention turns toward measurable strengths and limits. Reality defines reputation more than image. Strengths, limits, and trade-offs. Every heavyweight cruiser carries inherent weight, and the Chief Vintage is no exception. Its mass contributes to highway stability, yet it requires deliberate handling in confined spaces. Riders must respect that balance. Weight delivers presence and composure, but it reduces agility compared to lighter platforms. This trade-off is not a flaw. It is an attribute that demands awareness. Price sensitivity presents another consideration. Positioned in a premium tier, the Chief Vintage competes in a space where buyers expect material quality and durability. While resale patterns for previous Chief models have shown steadiness, initial cost remains significant. Prospective owners must evaluate whether craftsmanship and long-term reliability justify that investment. Financial prudence, rather than impulse, shapes the purchasing decision. Touring practicality stands as a clear strength. The ergonomics and wind protection support extended mileage without requiring extensive modification. However, the absence of integrated, full touring bodywork limits certain conveniences found on larger models. Storage capacity and passenger accommodations remain substantial but not expansive. Market limitations also exist. The I model appeals strongly within a defined segment, yet it may not attract riders seeking aggressive styling or lightweight agility. Assessing these factors together provides a balanced view. The Chief Vintage excels in stability and presence, while accepting trade-offs in weight and price positioning. With strengths and limits clarified, the broader conclusion emerges. Perspective brings the full picture into focus. The real position of the Chief Vintage. The return of the Chief Vintage does not represent a radical transformation of the cruiser landscape. It introduces no disruptive architecture and declares no technological overhaul. Instead, it reinforces an existing lane within Indian's lineup. That reinforcement carries significance because it stabilizes the brand's commitment to traditional heavyweight cruisers at a time when some segments chase rapid shifts. Positioned within the broader market, the model strengthens Indian's hold on riders who prioritize classic form combined with modern assembly standards. It does not attempt to dominate every category. It secures its ground in a specific space defined by full fenders, visible torque, and long-distance composure. That clarity allows other models in the lineup to explore different expressions without diluting identity. Evaluated without drama, the Chief Vintage stands as a deliberate continuation rather than a revolution. It reflects confidence in sustained cruiser demand and signals structured investment. Instead of speculative risk, there is no need for triumphant declarations or predictions of disruption. The motorcycle settles into its place with measured certainty, reinforcing an identity already understood. It neither attempts to redefine the segment nor retreat from it. Instead, it strengthens a clear, established lane built on visible substance and steady torque. In doing so, it confirms that traditional heavyweight cruisers continue to hold a defined and durable position within the broader motorcycle market landscape today. Indian didn't bring back the Chief Vintage by accident. Moves like this only happen when a company believes the riders are still there and the miles still matter. Whether you love this direction or think the market should be going somewhere else, this reveal says a lot about where heavyweight cruisers are really headed. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Indian bringing the Chief Vintage back? Is this the kind of bike the segment needs, or is the industry missing the bigger picture? If this breakdown helped you see the bigger story behind the reveal, hit like, subscribe for more straight talk rider analysis, and drop your take in the comments.